Well, hello everybody, and happy 4th of July to you all. We wanted to do something really special today. 4th of the July, blah, 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 can't even get my words out, is all about freedom, right? And it's a very special day for those in the States and for those of us who are married to Americans. And what better way to celebrate with one of my best mates who's all about freedom and does so much to help the world of work, particularly women, to make sure that their voices are heard, to give them their own freedom. I could wax lyrical about how I'm very biased, but I'm going to hand over to the lovely Jen Coken to introduce herself.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Eaton, Ms. Eaton. Thanks, Sam. It's great to be here. I was so happy, when we were talking about doing this, and I said, heck, let's do it on the 4th of July, because we're going to talk about being free from white collar performance. So I'm Jen Coken, and I am an executive leadership coach for women in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, math, all those male dominated industries, aerospace, construction, fill in the blank. And I have been working with leaders over the last 10 years to help them lead with authority, influence, and impact. And what I mean by that, authority is really about being true to yourself, your own authority, your own agency over your leadership. Because for too long, we have been trying to contort ourselves to fit in. And that's why I was so excited to have this conversation today about how do we free ourselves up to be ourselves at work so we don't feel like bifurcated between home and work. Influence, the way that I look at this is how are we flowing energy into our team and they're flowing it back at us. And then finally, impact. It's all about the legacy that we leave. And I'm also an author. I should talk about that. My best-selling book, Make Imposter Syndrome Your Superpower. I'll grab the book at some point and do a shameless plug. Is been in the top 10 on Amazon and career and professional development for a long, long time. Highly recommend you get it. It's the primer I wish I had 30 years ago when I started working. I'm so glad to be here with you.
It's wonderful, isn't it? And
It is.
Jen, you and I talk so often about, I guess, our own careers. And, I remember early on being in a very male dominated environment at Goldman Sachs. And I often share the story of, because I also think this works both ways, right? And it's, how do we get our voices heard? And I'll share a story with you. I remember one day when we were at Goldman, we had these cubicles, right? So you had tiny rabbit warrens in between where you could pass, but it was one person at a time.
Really?
Yeah, one person at a time could pass, but obviously you had the corridors outside of that. But this lovely Arab guy called Hussein saw me coming and another lady behind who was a New Yorker. Now, he moved out of the way for me and said, please, Sam, after you. And this lady was behind me. And she rips him a new one. She was like, how dare you insult us and this, that, and the other. And there's a fine line. And I know you as a coach are fully aware of that and have really dug deep into this in terms of we want that acknowledgement and we want that respect. We want our voices heard. And you shared a lovely story the other day, but there's some instances that we need to help ourselves, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he was just being gracious.
Uh,
Right. And I think this is what's so interesting to me is as I'm talking with women and as I've talked with women, and look, the things that I'm saying could be applied to men too. That's the honest to God's truth. I just focus on working with women because I know what it was like for me growing up in these industries, growing up,
yeah.
careering up, I guess. I was already grown up, but you know what I mean? What it was like for me coming up where I felt like I had to fit in. But I think in a situation like that, he was simply being kind. He was being generous. He was being chivalrous. Okay. I think it is a fine line to make sure that we aren't playing victim,
Mm-hmm.
that we aren't somehow blaming men or blaming somebody else for our own contortions. Now, the other side of that coin, because there's always the front and the back, right?
Yeah.
Is the patriarchy is real. The patriarchal structures that have shaped society, have shaped no matter where you are in the world, the work world, the way that we work, that is real. And as women coming into the workforce much later than men, we have had to figure out how to fit in. You know that book, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg?
Yeah.
I hate it. And I hate it because what she's saying is that, you have to just lean into it and, contort yourself to fit in. And by the way, you can have it all. You can have a family and you can be a leader. And that's great if you have a nanny at home and everything else. I mean, it was just kind of, it was not, people loved it, but I don't think it was a great book, quite honestly, because
Real.
no, not at all. It wasn't realistic, right? It was not
Yeah.
realistic for the average person out there. And so we have had to figure out how to find our own voices despite the constructs we're working inside of, while also respecting those constructs. And what I mean by that is, in some places of work, it is toxic no matter what gender you are, whether you're a man or woman or non-binary or whatever else. It's a toxic environment. Get out. You want to find those environments where you can be yourself, but that's an inside job. Because if you don't know who you are, if you spent most of your life being a people pleaser, doing the right thing, being the good girl, trying to fulfill your own expectations or somebody else's, you'll lose yourself. And then you forget who you are until all of a sudden the kids are out of the house, or if you don't have kids by choice, like me, until it's at the end of your career and you're like, okay, what do I want? But so many people say to me, oh my God, I haven't taken the time to figure out what I wanted until I started working with you, because they didn't realize that was okay.
Yeah. And again, you and I have had this conversation, and I realized, when I was at Goldman and then I went to Sky TV, the level of work and where I was working was, exceptional. I'm very proud of that. But I suddenly realized I hadn't grown up.
Huh.
It was, there was a really interesting time where I kind of looked round and it was like, I own an apartment, I'm earning really good money, but emotionally, to your point, I realized I hadn't grown up because I'd been, ironically, so busy working in corporate and making sure I looked the part and really throwing myself in. And I'd been doing it from such a young age. And I think so much of this comes from, however you look at it, to your point, that we don't give ourselves that time to develop as us as human beings. Jen, I'd love for you to share more about your career, because I think your career and your background is really interesting, because you come at it from a point of great humor. I've always said you have funny bones. And the other side of that is good grace. And
Hmm.
it's very easy to be turned off and blame the world. And your approach is very different, which is take ownership.
Take ownership, take agency,
Yeah.
take agency. You don't, yeah. So my career, in a nutshell, I have my master's degree in political campaign management, and I ran my first political campaign at the age of 21. And what was interesting at that political campaign, actually, so that was our internship in grad school. And this is kind of where it all started, to be honest with you. And my master's thesis was the campaign plan for the candidate. Now, because there was few internships and because the candidate met with a series of us, and like the two of us were putting together the campaign plan, me and a guy called Bill. And Bill was a three-piece suit, Magnum PI looking guy who was charming AF and did not have a brain cell in his head.
Wow.
So guess who wrote the campaign plan?
Wouldn't be you, would it?
Oh, yes. And I just assumed through my hard work and through the strategy that I had brought, because her whole point was she was going to put us to a test and figure out who was going to be the primary lead. And he won that battle because he was charming. He did not know what he was doing. And that was like my earliest time of, wow, the system's rigged and it is not in my favor. And she was also a woman running in Southern Ohio, which is the Bible Belt. She was a mom of 8, and she
Wow.
was a Vietnam War protester, and they called her Hanoi Hannah at the time. And this is like 1986. So the Vietnam War was not that far behind. And I just watched how much the system was rigged. And that's when I decided, okay, running political campaigns at that time wasn't for me. I have to figure out something else. So I went to become a grassroots organizer. And that's what I predominantly did for 25 years. But part of that also, I've stood up nonprofits, started a number of them either through my job or as a volunteer, and then moved to DC and began working on the Hill. And again, single woman in the room, in the boardroom, the whole bit. And again, seeing what was happening around the construct in politics, the few female members of Congress, senators, et cetera, the board, few females. And you know who was on our board? Ariana Huffington.
Wow.
And Al Franken. And Ariana, I decided to leave that company and start my own. And Ariana was my first client. So I stood up a nonprofit for her. And as the years went on, my later corporate jobs were in the energy industry. And again, single woman, the only woman in the room, the only woman in the boardroom, or one of two, those sorts of things. And I found that I had exiled parts of myself. I found that I had stopped being feminine, quite honestly. Look, I was a hard-nosed person. In politics, you have to be. On the Hill, you have to be. And I just kind of took that to the nth degree. My favorite phrase was, if you can't hack it, get your jacket. There's someone else behind you. I was an HR nightmare, yelling at people. It was not a good look. It was not a good look. And I toned it down through the years, but I still didn't bring my femininity. I didn't bring my intuition. I didn't bring my innate desire to collaborate into the corporate realm. I did in the grassroots realm, because a lot of the work I was doing was with Native communities where it's matriarchal.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went to that. But as I was exiling these parts of myself, I felt like such a fraud. And like you said, I hadn't found my own voice.
Yeah.
Because whatever voice I had discovered was in relationship to something else or someone else. And I was watching the other women leaders and how they got ahead. Quite honestly, at the time, Ariana Huffington has shifted and changed so much. But at the time, I was watching her and how she governed, very, very strongly, very strongly. Okay, that's the way to do it. Cora Masters-Berry, who's the former First Lady of Washington, D.C., was another client. I watched her, her way or the highway. That's the way she knows. Except you kind of leave dead bodies. I do. And that's not who I am. It's just not who I am. And so it wasn't until 10 years ago when I hung out my own shingle. I had been coaching people for about 20 years before that. So I've been coaching people almost 30 years, but it wasn't until I hung out my own shingle and started thinking about who are the people I want to contribute to. Oh, it's women just like me. Let me look at the places I got stuck and how can I contribute and help other women, up and coming high achievers, or women even currently in the C-suite, not make the same mistakes I did by burning out because we lost ourselves in the process.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted, you to share your story, because it's, it is a very different story to so many. Michelle, thank you for your kind words. Yes, it's
Thanks,
great.
Michelle. Hi, happy 4th.
Because you have been at such a pivotal and senior role in such a variety of sectors. When was your pivotal moment when you decided to take all of that knowledge that you've got and turn it into the coaching programs you now have? How did that evolve?
It's so interesting because I think, as an entrepreneur, right, I'm going in my 10th year of business, which is shocking to me. So 10 years ago, I started out, my first book came out, When I Die, Take My Panties, which was a memoir about my mom passing from ovarian cancer and a mother-daughter relationship. And I wrote it as an homage to her to educate women about their bodies and ovarian cancer. And I achieved that. I know of at least 3 women that were diagnosed early, but it was really difficult for me to be around all that grief and kind of reliving my mom's death. So within 6 months of the book coming out, it became an Amazon bestseller, TV, radio, the whole bit. But again, I'm like, okay, I can't keep this up. And one of my coaches said, you got to make money, because I'm sorry, but as an author, you can have a book, you're not making money off that book. So,
Right.
Write the book, get it out of your soul. People want to read what you have to say. Use it as your tool, your credibility, your tool to give to people. And I began to think about, okay, who do I want to coach? But it took me a number of years to get to where I am now. And I had a pivotal moment last fall, actually, where I was thinking about what's the next 10 years of work, 15 years of work look like for me? What's the next chapter? And I had been coaching people one-on-one forever. And you know how when when it's one-to-one, it's beautiful. I love those containers. I love the confidentiality with me and the client of helping them navigate tough management situations, or attempting to manage up, whether they're managing down or up. I love working with teams to make sure their company culture is the place people love showing up to work, except that's just one person. And I read a McKinsey report. And the McKinsey report did a study that, yes, there were more women in the C-suite, but they were hiring outside the company because they hadn't built the pipeline.
Yeah.
So it's costing the companies about 30% more. And it's also costing them the intellectual property that leaves when these people leave. And I thought, well, if companies aren't building the pipeline, I'm going to build the pipeline. And then I had to sit down, and stare out the window, quite honest. That's what I call it. I tell my clients all the time, you've got to have time you do this every morning. You do this very well because you journal and you think, and you're like, look what I drew today. You're very good about strategy. Most people are not. So entrepreneurs are, I think, in a way, because we have to be thinking about the next level of our business or how things are going. But if you are in corporate, a busy person, or in a nonprofit, busy person, you are scheduled stem to stern.
Yeah.
And where the heck are you going to find 90 minutes a week at a minimum to think, to stare out the window, to grok something through to completion, which simply means to think about it and wonder about it and read about it until it's in your bones. So I had to take the time to do that and think about, okay, what am I giving my clients one-on-one that I can turn into a curriculum, but not just a curriculum to teach? Because if you teach somebody something, linear education, traditional education, how much have we forgotten from school?
Right.
How much have we forgotten from school? Because you learn it and you forget it. And I have always been a fan, and the way I was trained to coach people is it is phenomenological learning, meaning it's an as-lived experience. So how do we learn and apply, integrate it? How do we identify those neural pathways that have kept us small and disrupt those and form new ones? So that was kind of my process of staring out the window, thinking, drawing. I have my remarkable tablet, so I love draw circles and things connect. I'm like, no, that's not it. And it went through many, many iterations, the mastermind that I now lead, to where it is now. But it is brilliant. I'll say it. It's flippin' brilliant.
It is.
I don't have, okay, say it, because I like in an English accent.
Flippin' brilliant.
Thank you. Hi, Marcia. Good to see you.
Hey, Marcia. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. And, something that you talked about there, you and I mastermind and noodle together. And having been out of corporate myself now so long, I think I've forgotten some of those. So I work very closely with Sam O'Neill, as you know. She's the VP, my VP now, and works across the mastermind and the business club. But she's less than 2 years out of corporate, and hearing those stories and the mindset and some of the things that they've been through is just, there's nothing for it. It's just horrific.
Horrific.
And I've always been stubborn, as we know. I'm very.
We have that in common.
Yeah, we do.
Tenacious. I'm going to call it tenacious instead of
Tenacious.
stubborn.
Yes, we have tenacity. For me, it's, mission driven is so important to me. And I get it with those in corporate, having the salary, having the benefits. I totally understand, and then getting used to it and living to that level.
Yes.
I no longer understand it, and I can't do it. It doesn't mean I'm intolerant. I'm curious about it. But, I've been this side for so long. It's like, come over here. Is it hard work? Yes, it is. But you find the people you want to work with. You connect with them on a different level. I mean, you and I met at a mastermind several years ago.
Yeah. That wasn't it COVID? Was it 2020?
I think it might have been.
Hey, Mike.
Hi.
Hello, Texas. Is it hot? But it's hot in Texas.
I bet it's freaking hot. Freaking hot. Happy 4th.
Happy 4th, Mike.
But I remember even then being, kind of fighting and pushing a bit until we were both on a second mastermind together. And you can't, to your point earlier, you can't do that in corporate. And I remember being back in corporate, and I was never very good at being told what to do. And I said, but you're asking me to put my left foot in front of my left foot. It goes left, right. And, I remember getting told off for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a couple of things. Yeah, we're going corporate feels completely foreign. I think there's so many points I want to make. Let me share one horror story that just kind of drives the point home. For a woman, I met somebody who was in the finance world on Wall Street in New York, was having difficulty getting elevated, promoted until she got a coach. It was a woman executive coach. And this is what she told her to do. Do not speak to men first. Do not stand up in a meeting to shake somebody's hand. And don't say anything unless you're asked to. So she adopted. So you and I would be like, grr. She adopted all three of those behaviors and made it to the C-suite and quit because she was burnt out. And this is what happens, is that we are asked to perform according to somebody else's agenda, according to somebody else's construct, according to a structure, a room that was never built for us in the first place. And that goes for men and women because, it goes for both. And we've got to take the time to figure out what is our authentic voice. And that is not by Googling that. If you Google what's authentic leadership, there are 33 million plus hits. People, you are looking the wrong way. That is an inside job. And that is the first thing I work on with my clients, is helping them identify their voice and what's true for them and how they want to manage, how they want to be in the company. Now, some companies would frown on that and say left over left, you have to go left over right. That's your mode to exit because the culture isn't a match for you. Yeah. See, and that's what happens, right? Is once you figure out who you are, and we're so busy getting to the next rung, the job, like you were speaking about earlier, we don't stop to, okay, what's true for me? And one of the things for me, my core value, this is playfulness. If I can't crack a joke, if we can't have fun, I want to do that. If I can't have fun with my clients, if we can't make fun of ourselves. From the Virgin Islands, ooh, lovely.
Yes.
Thank
maybe
you for
we should
being
do a live, Jen, from the Virgin Islands.
Oh, maybe we can go to this person's house.
Yes, let's do it.
We're inviting ourselves over.
You're welcome.
House guests arriving. We'll bring some cowboy caviar, which is what I'm bringing to the picnic later. If you don't know what it is, put a comment in the chat and I'll put the recipe in. North Shore of Chicago. Hello, Chi Town. So, it's so important to start this as an inside job. Oh, and then the other story I was going to share is a client that I'm working with. She's in a tough management position with someone who reports to her, and she left me this WhatsApp voice memo, and she said, if this person was open to feedback, like my natural inclination is to mentor, to coach, because this person is not open to feedback and they're now on a PIP. They're now on a performance improvement plan. She said, all I want to do for this person is say to them, look, here's my feedback. Here's the coaching. Manager as coach. They won't take it. And my client is frustrated. And I said, you know what? Number one, the fact that you're saying this, that your heart hurts, you're concerned about it, tells me you're a great leader. Because that is where, as managers, once you figure out your voice, you do the inside job, then it's the outside job. How do I empower and inspire my team?
Yeah.
Not to cover my butt, but in order to empower and inspire my team so that we're working together to fulfill organizational goals. I said, number one, you're a great manager. That is the hallmark of a great manager. Number two, you can lead a horse to water. You cannot make them drink.
Absolutely right.
And if she was open to you even saying, I would love to provide you feedback, but you don't seem open to it, don't even do that. And I have said to her, you've got to think like an engineer, because they're in engineering. So she thinks like an engineer, very cut and dried, where my client is empathetic and is more of a relator, a people person, which is why she's a great manager. I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but we started somewhere, and I don't know where to go from here. So I'm just going to stop and hand it back to you, Sam. I'm thinking about the Virgin Islands. I'm like,
I know. I got lost at the Virgin Islands.
I know. That's it. Not
there.
From the North Shore of Chicago, sorry, but from the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there with a pina colada in hand right now.
Oh, pina colada. That's coconut, right? And a rum. Yeah, I'm with you. And a big hat. Big hat.
Big hat.
Big
Much
hat.
needed.
And like a beautiful bathing suit with like a gorgeous, whatever, flowy caftan over it.
I'm with you. And there are going to be 3 great questions that will tell us a little bit more about you, Jen, when I do my questions later. So you mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about your mastermind and what's coming up. I'm really excited about this. You've got some great results through previous cohorts.
Yep.
What is it? When is it? And how can people sign up?
It is called the Executive Presence Accelerator, and it is a 6-month mastermind, and it's small, 8 people, 8 women. You do not, I actually was talking to someone yesterday who's 28, and I said, I bet you're wondering if you're going to be the youngest person there. She said, yes. I go, you will be. That's okay. You don't have to be going into the C-suite or ready for it. The point of the cohort is we're going to spend 6 months together working on building our internal confidence by owning our voice, owning the room. We're going to work on the external influence. How are we dealing with power dynamics and gender dynamics? And how do we own our no? How do we set boundaries? What boundaries? And then the final couple months is all about your thought leadership and being ready to be an external voice for the company. And it starts July 23rd. I will put, can I put it in the chat somewhere? Can I put a?
Yeah, I think you should be able to.
I wasn't ready. Here we go. This is the link. What do? I put it in with you in the private chat?
I think you should be able to do it in the normal chat, but what I will do.
I don't think so. I don't see a way. No, I don't see a way to do it. I just sent it to you. So maybe, wait, what's this plus?
And let's do this live, everybody. So this is live. We've never done this before. Has that gone in the chat?
I said, well, yeah, it just says private chat and it's locked. So maybe if you cut and paste it into the regular chat.
I've tried and it's not letting me. So what we'll do afterwards, everyone, because this will be live, either Jen or I will put it in the chat so you can find it.
Yeah. And like you said, people are having extraordinary results. I have somebody who's actually her boss's boss, her skip level manager has her they're reorganizing the company and he wants her to be one of the leaders. She never saw herself that way. I have somebody else who realized she was in her head so much that she was never fully present in her meetings. And she just won 2 of her biggest deals.
Wow.
This year. And she had not been she hadn't gotten her groove back. She got off kilter last year, but she's gotten her groove back. And somebody else who was sick and tired of being talked over and their ideas stolen and is also able to stand their ground and state their case from fact, not from, beating somebody up or making somebody feel bad. The whole point of this is, how do we stop shrinking? How do we stop dimming our light and take up space? And not in a boisterous, gross way, because there's
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
they're like, I'm here. We don't mean that. And that's, I think, I did a 3-part workshop last week called Unignorable, and there was 10 women in each session. And it was interesting, some of the things they said. Well, I don't want to talk about my successes because I see other people and they just sound so full of themselves. And I said, well, don't do that. But isn't it interesting that you're trying to figure out your voice, comparing yourself to what else is going on, what's happening before? That is the killer of joy. Comparisonitis is the killer of joy. Stop comparing ourselves. I actually dropped 2 of F-bombs during the workshop because I was so worked up about it. I'm like, don't F that. F that. Why are we even entertaining that conversation? Because the moment you do, and it is automatic pattern, it's brain patterning.
Yeah.
That's the key. So, and the beautiful part about the way I've set up the cohort is there's pre-work, like 20 minutes of watching a video, doing something, coming on, I teach. Then it's, how am I going to apply it this week? And you look to see, how can I actually apply this? Then you come back and we workshop it. How'd it go? And you get input from the other women on the call. And that's the most beautiful thing. Women are across industries, finance, broadband, video production. I mean, different industries. Yeah. Legal, going, wait a minute. You deal with that too, because we don't realize that other women are dealing with the same stuff. And sometimes they've gone before and they can share how they've dealt with something, so we can learn from each other. Because I am not, me, I don't pretend to be some guru, some sage on the stage. I hate that. I'm your guide on the side. We're in partnership. How are we going to move forward together so you're producing results? And at the end of the day, you're so confident in who you are. It's almost like you have this taproot sunk so far into the ground that when people say or do things, you're not reacting to it. You're kind of going, is that a fit? Is that not a fit? Comparing it to yourself rather than comparing yourself to somebody else. When we are leading from that vantage point, our eyes are only on others and empowering others. And how are we going to succeed as a team? Isn't working in a collaborative team the best? You have the best team.
Oh, I love it.
You have like the symbiosis and you're vibing off each other. It's the most beautiful thing, where you have like a team in sync. We can't do that if we're focused on ourselves, if we're worried and concerned about how we're going to come across. I had a woman say to me, she's interviewing for the C-suite, for the CEO. She's in the C-suite now for the CEO position. Her biggest concern is, was she too young? I said, well, why would you say that? Because everybody else in her industry, they're white men in their 50s, and she's a white woman who's 39. So has anybody brought that up to you? Well, no. So where's it coming from? Comparison. Another woman who was on the very same call said, I'm surrounded by these subject matter experts, and I'm not one. They have PhDs, she's in tech. So they have all these PhDs. They're designing apps. They're mechanical engineers, except she is like a startup guru. She is the person you go to. She is a subject matter expert in being a CEO and standing up organizations, but she never saw herself that way. Again, she was comparing herself to others. So you have one person in Montana and one person in Michigan, distinct industries, completely different ages, going, you're just like me. That is the beauty of being in this cohort.
Yeah. And something you said there, and we find that in our masterminds, sometimes it's those moments where people are sharing their experiences and saying, oh my goodness, I thought I was the only one who felt that, or gosh, I've never spoken about this before. That's a real light bulb moment where people then can go on to make that change.
Yes.
And I'd say myself, and I still say I'm a work in progress, but I was definitely an acute people pleaser, right down to how I dressed. Oh, everyone shops there, so I really should.
What are they
And now
wearing? I should get that. Even if it
Yeah.
didn't fit, if and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to be in this thing," but you're
Yeah. And now I walk past that shop, right? But it's, you know, it's that whole thing of, you know, why do we do that? And how do we overcome that? And I think recognizing it, getting ourselves on some of these masterminds, having great conversations like we're having now and going, huh, actually, there is another way. And often it doesn't mean a radical change. It's
no.
more, and I think this is the other thing that now looking back on it, I thought, you know, I had to change everything. And I didn't. I just had to kind of say, do you know what? I'm really not comfortable with that.
I think you didn't have to change things, and I'm gonna grab my book so I can do a shameless plug over here. Hold on.
Plug incoming.
Yeah, you what I hear is, can I share what I hear?
Of course.
It wasn't about changing, it's about you returning to yourself, about you saying,
Yeah.
"Is that a fit for me or not?" And this experience of belonging, this people pleasing, it is a universal experience. And the reason I wrote my book is because what I had found through the years of working with women and testing my theory, and men too, because I've done the same keynote to a room of 1,000 and the same things happen. Every single one of us has had, male or female, has had some incident, some defining moment, not traumatic, not dramatic, before the age of 12, that has set up how we experience belonging,
Mm.
how we relate to others. And we carry over whatever happened in that moment. And usually it's super innocuous, super
Yeah.
innocuous. You see some other kid throwing a tantrum and you think, I'm never going to be like that. So you're just quiet and subdued, except you have all these feelings inside you never let out. And in the moment where somebody else is having feelings, you can't even be present because you don't know, all you know is how to be shocked and subdued. It's like we're driving, it's like an upset 9-year-old is driving our life. The moment, and this is what the work that we do in the accelerator in the first 2 months. And I know you do this kind of work too, where you're working on the mindset. Because until we see those brain patterns and disrupt them and make new ones, we're going to be victim of our own thoughts.
Yeah. Totally. And I think that's a really key phrase. So for anyone listening, you know, have a think, are you a victim of your own thoughts? Jen, and I've always said this to you, and it's, you know, outside of our friendship before, what comes out my mouth comes out my mouth. When some of the courses I've seen and witnessed you do, particularly say around the empowerment, the depth you go into, the scientific aspect of it, you know, you don't do what I call the woo of it, which is, you know, pink and sparkly and let's all just go to an event, play some music, dance around a bit, which I feel freaking awkward with anyway. It's like I can't think of anything worse. You know, you really deal with the science behind it and what that empowerment is about and how people in a moment can utilize that to be able to say, do you know what? And I think there's a beautiful line you shared with me recently, which is, I don't have to be in the room for that.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. So perfect. Yes. So one of my clients who her skip level manager wanted to meet her in person. This is the woman who is in the current cohort. And she wasn't even interested in a leadership position. She was fine. And she specifically went to her skip level manager, said, I want to take on more responsibility. He gave her an important project to lead. Her boss was fighting him, and the skip level guy, we'll call him Bob, was kind of, shocked that Jim, we'll call him her manager, was fighting him on it. And Cindy was in that room and she's like, when is it my turn to talk? So that was the first time she interrupted and staked her claim. The second time is Bob wanted to meet her in person because they had only met over Zoom. So he arranges for the three of them to have a meeting. And Jim is arguing for why to keep doing things his way, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And my client and Bob had been talking about strategy and what was next and his vision for the company and where she would fit in and what he sees and making references to Hamilton. And her final note to me was, I didn't have, and as she was watching Jim, her boss, she goes, Jen, I know you only work with women, but he's making so many mistakes you talk to us about. He really needs a coach. Not going to coach him. Somebody else can coach him. That's fine. problem child. But she said, I got up and left. It was 5 o'clock. I didn't need to be in the room where that was happening. I was like, brilliant. It's brilliant.
It is
Brilliant.
brilliant.
Good for you. You walked in when you wanted to and you walked out. How often have we sat there thinking we didn't have our own power to be able to leave when we actually did?
Yeah.
Oh, I can never quit. I can never do that. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You just don't want to. It's safe.
Exactly.
It's
What is it
safe.
can't or want? Right?
Yes. Yes. In fact, I was talking to a woman this past week who basically said in so many words, and she has put together this polished poise kind of performative persona. Oh, that's a lot of P's. Polished poise, performative persona. I feel like she should be called Polly. Polly,
Yeah.
the polished poise, performative persona person. Maybe I'll make up a character and like put on a I don't know, like a, whatever. Anyway, so she's put on this whole persona. And she said to me, I prefer transactional conversations. She doesn't want to reveal herself. It's too scary. And I said, at what point does that become your cage?
Well, exactly. Thank you, Marcia. Lovely to see you. I
Hi,
mean,
Marcia. Thank you for being here.
yeah, and it goes back to that, so many of us have been acute people pleasers
Yes.
and therefore locked away, right? In terms of, oh, what happens if I say, one of the things I've learned in life is you don't have to be rude. I'm a massive believer now where I'm at now in my stage and with what we're doing is I know I'm in full control. But if I don't agree with something, I don't have to be rude unless I'm angry. And then, there's multiple F bombs that are dropped, as you and I both know with me. But because I'm a woman, I can do it with good grace and be heard. Right. And I think getting to that point is very freeing. So get rid of the cage.
Yes. It's also scary. It's scary to get rid of that cage because that's all you know. Right. And she, at the end of the day, said, well, I don't know if I want to spend this money on myself. She had a kitchen to remodel.
Wow.
She had a kitchen to remodel. And I wrote back to her and I said, you have been on my mind all week long because truly this is what you were saying. This has become a cage. And it really struck me, I kid you not, all week long, where you said you'd rather put money into your kitchen than yourself. Doors open. I'm always going to be here. And I was, when I was about to hit send, there's that fine line as a coach between being aggressive and being what I'm known for, which is the velvet sledgehammer. And I did the velvet sledgehammer, very kind, very direct. And her email back to me was, thank you for your wise words. Gives me things to think about.
Love it.
Thank you for receiving all that. But this is why the Executive Presence Accelerator is so incredibly important. It's to free you and your spirit and your voice from the constraint of performance, from polish, from pitch, so you can fully be yourself. Because I think one of the key reasons everybody burns out and women burn out is we are trying to be everything to everyone all the time, all at once. And we simply cannot do that. It must
fully
stop.
agree. I fully agree with you. Jen, I have 3 very important questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your favorite cheese?
Oh, okay. I'm really sad this restaurant doesn't have it anymore, but they had a sheep's milk because I'm allergic to cow milk and I'm allergic to goat milk. I'm not allergic to sheep's milk. So I love a good manchego or other sheep's milk, but they had a
Nice.
sheep's milk blue cheese, like a stinky
Oh.
blue sheepy cheese. So good. And I was so sad when they took it off the menu.
I love that.
Yeah.
My next question is,
Yes,
what
ma'am.
is a film you have watched in the last year that you simply feel you will not get those minutes or hours of your life back?
God, I can't think of Demi Moore won the Best Actor award for it.
Oh.
What was that film that she was in? It was huge. Everybody loved it. And Jeremy and I watched it. We were like, really? It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. People loved it. And I can't think of the name of it, but she starred in it. If anybody who's watching knows what I'm talking about, please put it in the chat because it's going to make me crazy. And I don't have my phone on me to look it up right now on IMDb.
I
Yeah.
will be looking it up afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. And my last question is, picture this. You and I are going obviously to the Virgin Islands, and we need to pack our flotation device. What flotation device would you pack and why?
A giant unicorn. Like
But
a giant unicorn that like a unicorn throne that I could have my drink and like my ceviche, you know what I mean? So I could have the substance. Thank you. That was going to make me crazy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't watch that film. It is.
okay, I won't watch it.
We basically watched it going the whole time. So giant unicorn throne, one hand my cold drink, but I have to have two because I can't be drinking all day in the heat. It's got to be ice
No.
water and whatever else I'm drinking. Probably like a Chopin and soda water with a little cranberry and lime, or maybe a frozen fruity drink, but with vodka, you know, that kind of thing. The other side would be ceviche and chips. That's my favorite thing. Oh, margarita and ceviche and
Yes.
chips on a giant unicorn throne because
We're doing it.
we're doing it. Yeah.
We're doing
Sparkly unicorn. Sparkly unicorn.
it. Jess Soto, we're coming for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, Jen, I just want to take a moment. Through the years, I think last year you came through our mastermind. We've got ours coming up, our next one in September. For anyone who's thinking, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? How did you find the mastermind and what did you get out of it?
Brilliant. I mean, the level of value that you provided, the ability to meet people where they were at, the people who came, and honestly, what I got was courage because you walk people through even simple things. You know, I think one of the calls we were talking about what happens when someone ghosts you. Well, what about this? What about that? And the other piece, Sam, is I really appreciated sometimes when you get into these masterminds, the people leading it are like, I'm going to give you all my wisdom. And, you know, this is what I know. And why aren't you doing it? And we have been in one together that was very similar to that. And so you don't come across that way. It's like, we're partnering on this. What about this? Have you tried this? Have you thought of this? What about this? You're really on people's side. You really want to see them win. So I would say the big thing was courage. And I sent the email that we talked about and I got a response from it saying, hey, because, you know, we sat down, we met at a conference, I put the proposal together, we had a couple good calls and then nothing, you know, and you feel weird. At least I do. I don't want to chase, but I also want to say to people, look, if you've got another way, it's fine. So we crafted something. This person came back to me, said, we haven't gone any other way. We need to handle this. Let's talk in September. Like, right. So I would say courage and the amount of value that you provide people is extraordinary. So much content, so much value.
Oh, Jen, thank you.
You're welcome. I say the truth. I'm not even trying to blow smoke up your butt, just so you know, like a big old firecracker on July 4th.
Oh, see, it's one of the things I love you for. They're funny bones. I keep saying funny
bones.
So, how do people get in touch with you if they're wanting to contact you because they want to come on to your mastermind accelerator that's coming up?
Yes. Easiest one is email, jen@jencoken.com. Just shoot me an email. You can put in the line, heard you with Sam in the subject line, and tell me what you want to chat about. And we can chat about the accelerator. You can also go to my website, jencoken.com, JenCoken.com. But send me an email. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if it's the right fit. Let's see what's up. I would love, love, love to chat because I am looking for eight intimate, small people who are really open to transforming their life in 6 months. And I guarantee that will happen. Your life and your leadership. And you can take that to the bank.
You certainly can. And as I said, you know, I've seen firsthand and heard firsthand Jen in some of her empowerment sessions. I've never seen anything like it. And again, I'm not blowing smoke up your what's it. It's so different. It is so different. You know,
Thank you.
whilst I love a unicorn float, right? I don't want it when I'm trying to change something in my life. I want that practical tools I can use. I want someone who's going to work with me.
Yeah.
Who I know will positively challenge me for all of the right reasons. And that's what you get through working with Jen.
Thank you, Sam. That's very, very kind of you. And I accept that and I receive that.
Awesome. So you see why we had to do this on July the 4th, everyone. This is all about freedom and living life on your terms. It's very
Yeah.
easy for Jen and I to do it this side of the fence. But trust me, you know, the struggle is still real for us. We still learn and challenge and have different challenges and issues every day.
Yep.
Having your own community. Jen and I are very fortunate with our relationship that we've, you know, we can mastermind and noodle together and be there for each other. But if you're hearing this and feeling this and thinking, I need to get in touch with Jen, it's okay to get into her DMs next week. Just sit with it, enjoy it. And we were so grateful for you being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And people, yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My DMs are open. Let's have a chat. You know, I've so appreciated it. You know, we talked about this earlier in the week, of course, because I have jury duty next week and then I'm on vacation, first vacation in a year. So I'm excited. You're like, what about the 4th? And I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. It's called freedom from performance polish, freedom from that cage. It's what you provide. It's what I provide. And I just really thank you, Sam. I adore you. I adore everything about our relationship and I appreciate you immensely.
Oh, thank you, Jen. And you know that feeling is mutual.
I
Right,
do.
everybody, we are going to give you your 4th of July back. Have a great time. Don't do anything we wouldn't do. Cue the music and bye from us.
Bye, 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 bye. You know, that gives them a big